here was other than the experiment is the testing process. Build, measure, learn, loop. This is the fundamental of the lean setup strategy, what we have been learning in the group. So this is how it works. First we identify the assumptions, then we prioritize the assumptions, which assumptions are critical for us, which assumptions are not so critical for us, and then we prepare the focus on the hypothesis assumptions which pose a very big risk, and then we prepare the figure out how to test the assumptions quickly. We figure out the hypothesis about the test, what how they should actually respond, because we need to provide a benchmark when we are measuring the results to compare with. So we prepare the hypothesis, and then we run the experiments about that particular uh, the test, and then we review the results. After we review the results, we reiterate so that we can, if we are not satisfied with the results, then we change our assumptions, we change our product, and then we test our assumptions again, we test our product again, so that we can make sure we are developing a product which is required by the customers. So this is how the build, measure, learn loop works. First, we have certain assumptions. We build the product. We build the experiments to test. We measure. We validate and answer the metrics, and then we learn. If our learnings are not good enough, then we go back to the if our learning, if the product is successful, we go on to test other assumptions. We go on to build the product more, and then we continue the process again and again and again. So it help the objective is to minimize the time and effort in each step. So each step means minimize the time from and the cost from going from assumption to build to test, test to learn. So this whole process has to minimize the time consumed in this particular loop, and also the time, the money that we are going to spend on this particular loop. In this so we for doing the build, measure, learn, we certainly say get out of the building means you actually has to go to the customer. One example of this startup, this technology was village laundry service. So this laundry service means this particular group, the founder was trying to understand, will the village, because villagers don't really have a particular place to wash their dishes, unlike the cities. There are no established laundry. So will the customer will use their laundry services in the area? So how they would test, instead of building the big laundry machines first into the and then asking the customers to send their laundry, what they did is they put up certain laundry machines on the truck and show how, and then they place those trucks around the city at strategic locations, just to see how the customers are reacting to them. Are the customers interested in learning about those machines? Are they putting up they try to want to use that particular machine to wash their clothes? Because this hypothesis was that customer may want to use the service, and how to build that, because they built certain small prototype, and then they transport the machine on the pickup truck so that they can actually bring it everywhere. But they did not wash the laundry in the truck. They collected the clothes, they went back to their factory, off-site factory, and then they washed the products, the clothes, and then they deliver it back to the houses where they collected it from. So in this way, they were able to actually generate an interest out of the customer. They were able to understand how the customers will pay. They put up the machines so that they can understand, and they will the customer be willing to pay for those machines. They put up in front of malls. They put up in front of the shops. They put up in the market. So then they were able to understand, and then now the village laundry service is very successful business in India as well, because they went out to the customer and learned from them. Analysis paralysis, or just do it. There are certain things, for example, sometimes the startups are doing a lot of analysis unnecessary. They just continue doing the analysis which is not really required. But you cannot also just say just do it, because you don't you really want to make it faster. That also is not the right way uh, of doing the things. You still need to do it, but however minimize the time. Design, we always think of design thinking principles. The design thinking principles work in following way: we make a prototype, we reiterate, we learn, we remake it, we go back to the prototype. So design thinking, a design thinking process also perfectly apply in our lean startup model. We are thinking the problem from the customer point of view, what the customer may want it, how the customer may want it. We make a prototype and then we go and test the prototype in front of customers to get their feedback. Will they really want the product, or how they will feel the product? Nowadays there are new terms called minimum viable experience, minimum customer experience, or minimum acceptable product in the market. So means how much that if the customer is willing to pay, are they, if there are other particular competitive products, will our product be acceptable? So we need to build our product until that level and then get the customer feedbacks, and then we remake the products. Right? So what are the matrices for validating? The in case of Facebook, when the Facebook started to raise the fund, so the startups, the venture capitalists were investing money. So some of the other market was very surprised because Facebook didn't charge any money. They didn't really have any customer. They didn't really have any business model. Their advertising revenue was very low, but however they got a lot of investment from the venture capitalists because of certain validating matrices. So their matrices were how many customers came to reuse the product. The Facebook was actually at that time their customers were coming daily to use their app at least once in a day, so the retention ratio was very high. The adoption rate was very high among the target marketed. In the universities, 80% of the students were using their product, using the application at that time. And then they didn't spend a single money to acquire new customers. All was all by word of mouth. So that actually show already that the product can be a great hit if it has right money to scale up, because they have very good adoption rate, very good retention rate, and they didn't really spend any money to acquire a lot of customers. There are business who spend a lot of money on acquiring customers so that they can get the customers, but the customers are just coming to them, but they don't really spend the money, or they use the product only once in a lifetime and then after that they never return. So that the validate the well matrices to measure the success or of the product depends on the product. There is no specific rule for that. There is no finite measure for that. It all depends on what kind of assumptions the business is making and how the venture capitalist will value your matrices. But the idea is the general idea is, will the customers are reusing your product? What is the adoption rate between how many percentage you market and how many percent of the customers are actually accepting your idea, and how much money you are spending to acquire your customers and how much money they are spending back on the application. If there is a positive relationship in that, then the value of the network is very high. However, the value of network will not be high if you are spending more than what is the value of your additional customers. So that is how we test the hypothesis.